As the candles flicker, a new tradition shines. 8 nights of Hanukkah, 8 nights of winning insights.
Like they may come out slow, so you might be able to get a better number. Wow, they're favored.
With SportsGrid, every night is another chance to win.
No pick sixes today, they cover. So let's crunch it up. Let's make it happen. Let's give you our favorite props.
Let your Hanukkah winnings brighten your celebrations. Happy Hanukkah from all of us at SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little, oh, man, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you.
Totally, I missed you pinching your own cheek as I was looking down and did not know we were getting.
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben. Like, that's what your grandma would do to you when you go see her on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome in. It is Game Time Decisions. We are here the day after Christmas on SportsGrid. Kevin Walsh with you for the next hour as we watch the close of Toledo and Pittsburgh. Run! Make a man miss. We're holding Toledo plus the 7. For any Toledo backers out there, perhaps under the touchdown, the goal here is 6. And a 2-point conversion attempt. If you played the money line, you'd like for them to get it. Toledo here at 7-5. MAC team against an ACC team, I think likely will be going for 2. There is another big bowl game with a MAC team tonight. We'll talk about Rutgers K-State is live right now. That game is outside of the purview of the KW Bowl Challenge because that game involves a New Jersey team. And we just cannot get in the mix with New Jersey teams, unfortunately. What we can get in the mix with is the Chicago Bears hosting the Seattle Seahawks. And tonight you have Seattle laying 5, 4, and 4.5 across a number of shops here on the road against the Bears. Now, how much this game matters to Seattle kind of depends on what you believe is realistic. Let's make this very clear. If Seattle loses this game, they are not out of the race to win the NFC West and catch the LA Rams. They would need the Rams to lose on their Saturday matchup with the Arizona Cardinals. However, for the LA Rams, if you just were to say, hey, Seattle wins tonight, does that guarantee them playing a Week 18 meaningful game? No. If Seattle wins, the Rams win as well, then this is going to come down to a strength of victory tiebreaker at best for the Seahawks. And what the Rams need is 3.5 more wins from the following teams: Minnesota, Buffalo, the Niners, Washington, Cincinnati, and Cleveland. So basically, tonight's game for the Seattle Seahawks is meaningless. They probably won't treat it, well, they certainly won't be treating it like it is fully meaningless, right? They aren't giving Geno the night off. Ken Walker is getting the night off, though. If this was a do-or-die game, maybe we would have seen them approach things differently with Ken Walker. And I know he's hit IR, but again, maybe they try and hold out hope a little bit more, if possible. For the Seahawks, though, the reason why I look at this game and think, give me the Chicago Bears, is not solely on the idea that it is a largely irrelevant game for the Seahawks. It's finally getting the Bears in a good spot. The Chicago Bears have had a very interesting ATS run during what is a monster, pick up that first down, what is a monster losing streak. 4-2 is now 4-11. Out of a bye, they lose to Washington on the Hail Mary. Obviously, we begin to go downhill. They don't get up off the mat to play Arizona. They don't get up off of the mat to play New England. They then play the Green Bay Packers, and that was a disastrous, heartbreaking scenario. Then they play Minnesota, and that was a double disastrous, heartbreaking scenario. But hey, they covered. Then it's Thanksgiving. It's Detroit. It's a huge, it's another disastrous, heartbreaking scenario. Fire Eberflus. They go to San Francisco, and that was as clear as I've seen a game this season. The Niners were my favorite side in Week 14. Cool, we got one right. I made a massive mistake going into Week 15 where I thought the Bears catching 7 points against Minnesota was worth a play. And it's hindsight helping me, but I missed something that should have been a little bit more obvious at the time. You have a Bears team that has been useless on the road this year. They haven't won a single road game all season long. The closest road victory they have is against the Jaguars in London. It was their third straight road game. Just not enough points. A mishap. They then played Detroit. They caught 7. I considered it. Ultimately didn't play it, though. The Lions were off a loss. The Lions are unbeaten on the road. And the Detroit Lions had a rest advantage going into that football game with the Bears coming off of a Monday night. For the first time in a long time, you have what I feel is a clear as day, great Chicago Bears spot. At home, equal rest, but you're the beneficiary because you didn't have to travel for the short Thursday nighter. A Seahawks team who's probably thinking a little bit too much about Week 18 as is. A Bears team that just desperately wants to put a win on the board to shake the demons. And also a Bears team who is, I would say, inarguably playing their easiest game in 5 weeks. 6, excuse me. Minnesota, Green Bay, Minnesota, Detroit, San Fran, Minnesota, Detroit. Yeah, this is their easiest game since. This team, by closing number, caught just 6.5 from the Lions inside this same exact stadium. How in the world are the Seahawks within 1.5 points of a number the Detroit Lions are laying? Perhaps we've overinflated it because the Seahawks need it. Again, no, they don't. The path for the Seahawks is a loss. They're kicking the extra point. You're a MAC team. You're a MAC team. You are a MAC team in a bowl game. You just punched it in from the 2-yard line. I mean, come on with the Toledo Rockets. What are you doing? Oh, my gosh. That's not right. That's not right what we just saw there. I really was very sure that they were going to be going for that too. Now, I've missed portions of this game. Maybe we've seen conservative play calling from Toledo where others weren't expecting them to go for it, but really? We could have been done and dusted. Come on. Nevertheless, Chicago Bears tonight are not playing a Seahawks team where it's life or death. Seattle's life or death will be when the Rams take the field against Arizona on Saturday. The Bears plus the points is how I'm going to be playing this game here on our Thursday night. There are some prop looks, though, that we will get on the board for you when we get to our Sports Millions Pick'ems. And there are some prop looks, actually, on the college board. You know that I've been with all the sides in these bowl games, and there is a side, once again, with Bowling Green and Arkansas State. But there is a prop that must be discussed, must be acknowledged, and ultimately must be played. We get to that next as we continue to root in the Toledo Rockets. How did they not go for two? How did they not go for two? We'll be right back.
So my team didn't win this weekend, but I still did with this app that's taking over the game. Sports Millions Pick'em lets you make quick and easy predictions. Pick your favorite players, go higher or lower, and you can still win big even if your team loses. Plus, the multiplier is insane. With just a few picks, you can win big money. So get on it. They've got a welcome bonus to help you start off your winning streak.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circa Sports Million, Circa Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was thinking! But he had that program was already going there!
Only on SportsGrid.
All right. Welcome back in. It appears, and I didn't realize this, our guy Donnie Rightsid's going to join us on the desk in a couple of minutes. He comes in yelling at me. You can't lose the Toledo +7. Once they scored that touchdown, the extra point, no matter what, we were good to go. We were in the bag, and he is right about that. So, fantastic. Because it would be 2-point shootout kind of the other side. Toledo getting the football there. So, the who, what, when, where, and why that all worked out. Toledo catching the 7. Is a cover here in this game against Pittsburgh, who moved some things around at the quarterback position. Eli Halston, who had been their man all year long, not able to give it a go. David Lynch was the guy for a while. Julian Duggar steps up and in. Really strong with his legs in this game here. Has a rushing touchdown already on the board, which is he put up during this overtime session here. We'll see what he can do. A field goal to send it to a third OT. But nevertheless, Toledo will cover. Let's talk about your late-night bowl game between Bowling Green and Arkansas State, the 68 Ventures Bowl. And what we have here tonight is a chance for some incentive betting. You will see this a ton next week in the NFL. Personally, it's not my favorite thing because I think it's hit such a fever pitch that the books just kind of yank it so far. Where are you really getting the best of it? But I know people adore incentive betting props in Week 18, and we'll see how that ultimately looks when the time comes. But for Bowling Green tonight in their game against Arkansas State, Harold Fannin Jr. will take the field with an opportunity at a little bit of history. Maybe you've not heard of Harold Fannin on the season. He has the second most receiving yards and the second most receptions in college football. The thing with Harold Fannin Jr. is he is a tight end. Fannin Jr. needs, I believe, 11 yards, very small amount, but more importantly, 12 receptions for the single-season record. You have seen this. I am sure a ton of you, Twitter or different articles, there's a lot of conversation around it. So the books have posted the Fannin Jr. props in the places where you can get your college player props, and they have consistently had to move them as the week has gone on. I believe I saw someone out there, clip the 7.5 number on Fannin. Well, now you take a look here, and we see Fannin listed at 9.5 for a receptions number tonight, which is underneath that would-be record. For this season, Fannin does have a 12-reception game. Game against Old Dominion, he had 193 yards. Keep that in your back pocket. But for Fannin, his actual yards itself is not as escalated. It is not as elevated heading into this game. That number, while still up and on the move, 105.5, 105 plus, 110 plus, you start to see that number again look a little bit different. And when I look at the Harold Fannin Jr. box scores, we're not leaving this game with 10 catches for 80 yards. He averages 13.4 yards per reception on the season. He has 4 games of double-digit receptions. 11 for 137 against Penn State. Kid's a baller. Again, the 12 for 193 against ODU. 10 for 171 against Kent. Keep that in mind as well, Kent State, the Golden Flashes. And then 10 for 137 against Western Michigan. So for me, unless we're going up against one of the best defenses in college football, they haven't moved this anywhere near enough. Because this is someone who had 11 for 137 on Penn State, who's arguably one of the best defenses in college football. Now let's pivot quickly to Arkansas State. The Red Wolves are by far, the worst defense to make a bowl game. Yards per play allowed. Yards per played. If you take a look, Arkansas State is the 6th worst defense in all of college football. 6th. The 5 teams that were worse than Arkansas State went 3-9, 3-9, 1-11, 1-11, and 0-12. 8-52 is they won 13% of their games. Arkansas State won 7. Very fortunate football team. Very vulnerable football team. So I'm laying it with Bowling Green. Not only because Arkansas State is bad, but Bowling Green now has incentive to get Fannin Jr. the rock and is going to be without Terrion Stewart, who was first team All-MAC as he's going to play at the power level. Well. Bowling Green is now going to be chucking it pillar to post against one of the worst defenses in all of college football, full stop. We're going to lay the 10. But now we go back to Harold Fannin. You can bet the 9.5 receptions. It should win. But I'm going to take him for 125-plus yards at plus 174. Because I've seen him do that in 7 games this year. That's more than 50% of his games. I'm getting plus 174. And you've got extra incentive here. You've got extra targets coming here. Works for me. And if by chance we do go out and get the 12 receptions, one of the teams that is worse in yards per play than Arkansas State, that's Kent State, 10 for 171. 17.1 yards per reception. That was his second best mark of the season. This kid's a superstar, by the way. His best mark was against Texas bleeping A&M. Maybe we get to 12 catches. That's when he hung 193 on ODU. I also took a shot 12-1 for Harold Fannin Jr. to leave this game with 200 receiving yards. One of the game's absolute best shines tonight. We'll go back to the NFL as we get you set with some Sports Millions pick'ems here for the prop board. Thursday night, Seahawks, Bears, where is the value? We will discuss on the other side.
Together, both Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson had huge nights. Aaron Rodgers loves the 2 big targets, and he says if this is going to happen, going to be very tough on the defense to decide who they want to go after.
Adams and this kid, Wilson, I won't deny what they can do, but nobody else does jack.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Are they definitely done with Daniel Jones from this point? And any shot that Dable is off the sidelines, meaning he gets fired before next season?
They have a general manager in Joe Shane. Every big move has to get approval by ownership. So look, the bottom line is they don't know who their future quarterback is past this season. Tommy DeVito's clearly not the answer. They don't have a Drew Lock's not the answer.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little, oh, man, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you.
Totally, I missed you. Kicked in your own cheek? As I was looking down and did not know we were getting.
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben. Like, that's what your grandma would do to you when you go see her on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
In with you right here, Game Time Decisions, live on SportsGrid. Kevin Walsh with you as we get ready for Thursday night football between the Chicago Bears, who host the Seattle Seahawks, and we try and find some prop value here. Kenneth Walker has actually now been slated to go to IR, and that means that Zach Charbonnet should have a clean backfield here for Seattle moving forward. There is probably, though, an air of hesitation. For context, last week, Charbonnet, there were reports, was going to be listed as a team captain. A team captain going into the game that the Seahawks played against the Minnesota Vikings, potentially suggesting that this team's lead running back was going to be Zach Charbonnet, even though Kenneth Walker was back. The result was Zach Charbonnet having 1 carry for -1 yard and a season-low snap percentage. Huh? What? Explain that. Nobody can. However, what stood out to me in that game with what was still, again, a season-low snap percentage, Zach Charbonnet had 2 grabs for 14 yards. Charbonnet has been very good out of the backfield this season for the Seahawks. 7.4 yards per reception. You look at some of the games that he has filled in for Ken Walker, and look no further than just a few weeks ago at Arizona when he had 7 grabs on 7 targets or 59 yards. I don't know if the backfield's going to get weird. I don't know if I really want to bet the backfield, but I'll take the dump-offs from an explosive player ultimately with Zach Charbonnet. Let's go higher, okay, higher than his receiving total tonight on Sports Millions Pick'em. A little bit of a similar situation, though not apples to apples, in Chicago when we look at the pass-catching room. On the season, or entering the season, I really should say, we knew that this team was going to have options. It was one of the selling points for the Chicago Bears. We've been left with something that has maybe been a little bit cloudier than we were expecting with DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, and, of course, the rookie Rome Odunze. If you look, though, on the year, I think it is pretty inarguable who the number 1 wide receiver is for this football team. Though, again, people probably would look to argue with me. Sure, if you want. I believe it's DJ Moore. DJ Moore, to me, has been the most consistent guy. He's been the most available guy. Where things have maybe gone wrong this year for DJ Moore has been the areas he's caught the football and it limiting his efficiency. DJ Moore, for his career, averaged, entering the season, around 14 yards per reception. He was at 14.2 last year, 14.1 the year prior to that. On the season, he's at 10 yards per reception. That is where you get games like last week against Detroit, 7 for 68. Or Minnesota, 8 for 46. San Fran, 6 for 49. To me, though, there comes a moment where you can buy low on what is still one of the, look, he's not one of the 10 best wide receivers, but DJ Moore is certainly one of the 25 best receivers, I think, in the league. And now we are no longer seeing him be top dog when you're posting the numbers for Chicago with more eyes going towards Keenan Allen. But snap count-wise, it was still 95% for DJ Moore compared to Keenan Allen, who was at 92%. You go to the week before, 87 DJ Moore, 82 Keenan Allen. It's marginal, but the margins make the difference here. And the number 1 receiver for Chicago isn't being treated like the number one receiver, so let's go higher than 55.5 receiving for DJ Moore. Don't forget to pair that up with Zach Charbonnet higher in the receiving game for Seattle at 23.5. Charbonnet should get a full workload, both running and certainly receiving, going up against the Chicago defense. We're going to get Donnie Rightside to join us. We're live with you right here on SportsGrid for a Thursday night.
Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson had huge nights. Aaron Rodgers loves the two big targets, and he says if this is going to happen, going to be very tough on the defense to decide who they want to go after.
Adams and this kid Wilson, I won't deny what they can do, but nobody else does jack.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Are they definitely done with Daniel Jones from this point? And any shot that Dable is off the sidelines, meaning he gets fired before next season?
They have a general manager in Joe Shane. Every big move has to get approval by ownership. So, look, the bottom line is they don't know who their future quarterback is past this season. Tommy DeVito's clearly not the answer. They don't have it. Drew Lock's not the answer.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little, oh, man, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you.
Totally, I missed you. Picked your own cheek? As I was looking down and did not know we were getting...
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben. Like, that's what your grandma would do to you when you go see her on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back in Game Time Decisions. We are live on SportsGrid. I'm Kevin Walsh with you. And speaking of decisions, we saw another par for the course, terrible one from an outdated coach. This time, Pat Narduzzi of Pitt stepping up. 4th and goal from the 2-yard line before they got to the 2-point shootout portion that comes within college football overtimes. A touchdown there would have given Pitt the win. And instead, they decided to kick the field goal to tie the game so then they could line up on the 2-yard line and see if they could win the 2-point shootout. Legitimately terrible. These coaches are all lost here. And you would think, as we bring in our guy, Donnie Rightside, Donnie, that if these games are meaningless, and
yes,
look, they are, coaches would, I don't know, maybe say, let's go for the win instead of being more conservative than even normal?
Yeah, no, it's what it is at this point where you're betting on guys who, and by the way, it was 12 the quarterback the entire game for Pitt.
Well, they were rotating.
It was rotating. Okay, by the way, this game isn't over yet.
He's not even in?
No, he's in the end zone.
Oh, he is in?
Yeah, I think he's in. So I think this game's going to continue. But as you said on a +7, let the game go all night. Cash tickets already, so no big deal at that point.
Yeah, that's the one instance where if you have a dog of a certain size, you get to this level of a game. I was sweating out the Hawaii Bowl.
Yeah.
I laid 2 at San Jose State.
Mm-hmm.
My best case was a push. I'm like, I can't even believe I'm watching. Like, I shouldn't even. I lost. Like, I can't even believe I'm giving this the time of day. Because, look, we've been going through the portion of bowl games that I don't think under any circumstance you were going to be interested in.
Correct.
When we get to tomorrow, Oklahoma Navy, eventually we're going to get Missouri, Iowa, Alabama, Michigan.
Yeah.
Will those grab your attention?
Not at all. Like, Miami is my favorite team. They're playing Iowa State in the Pop-Tarts Bowl. I will be nowhere near that game.
No?
Could care less about postseason football, which is funny because you said, well, Donnie, you're a hater. You don't like college football. I've watched every single college football playoff game. I will watch every single college football playoff game from here on out, start to finish, which includes the national championship game, and enjoy it. I just don't like games that don't mean anything. I can't get into it.
Yeah, I get it, right? I mean, I think it's all relative. Like, if there's something else on that you can get in the mix with, right? Like, I think that's why they do a nice job when there's the day games and, Christmas Eve, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was no, real sports on.
Yeah.
Like, in hindsight, they should have loaded that day up with bowl games instead of just the Hawaii Bowl. Got a lot of attention, a lot of focus there ultimately. Do you think? Well, let me ask you this then, Donnie.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on the fact that Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter are playing for Colorado against BYU in the bowl game?
It's interesting because usually you'd say it. Now, I think it's a little bit unique to Colorado, considering his father. Hey, look, we win this bowl game. I go to the negotiating table and say, look what I've done in 2 years.
10-win season.
Father understands that completely. Same thing also when you're looking at Travis Hunter, who looks at Deion pretty much as a father figure. Do me this one figure before you get out of here. But also now, the advent of these guys are going to make a lot of money. And if schools like Colorado be like, okay, we'll give you, and I know it's a insurance policy they got. I don't know how much they paid for, but they're not expensive as per se. Like each one of these guys has to pay $5 million in case they get hurt. No, It's like Lloyd's of London. Let's just say it's $150,000 a piece for the quarterback and also the wide receiver. They're going to pay that and play. Because if anything does happen, that insurance policy comes due, and you hope it doesn't hurt. And I'm not one of those people that also says, like, the bowl games technically are meaningless. But that doesn't mean if you play, you're going to get hurt and destroy your career. Like, everybody goes back to Willis McGahee in a national championship game in the year 2002. Like, when's the last time we saw, I guess the Notre Dame kid hurt his knee, too.
Jalen Smith.
You're talking about two guys out of thousands who have had impactful injuries. And Willis McGahee was the first-round pick.
The kid Jake Butt, right, from Michigan, the tight end was one. Well, so what's interesting to me is, because Bo Nix played last year against Liberty, Donnie.
Yeah.
They beat them by $1 billion. I wonder if for a quarterback, because Cam Ward's playing as well, it's like, look, as a quarterback, I know how to not get hurt. Not scrambling. Travis Hunter playing both ways in a bowl game. A kid who does get banged up in games plenty, I think, due to his size and whatnot. Like, I'm never going to crush a kid for playing. I'm never. It's a little surprising, though. Although maybe, maybe Travis Hunter just wants to get out onto a football field right now and get away from everything else that's been going on out there. You saw the video of Deion?
Yeah.
Kind of making a thing about it at practice.
Hey, look, got to bring you out. Bless him. Hey, look, going through a lot of things here, which means, like, did he drop his girlfriend the past 24 hours that we don't know about?
Yeah.
You know, he's on social media, then he's deleting accounts at this point, so really getting to him here at this point.
Deion, like, addressing it in that way in that video, getting out, I was like, man, this thing's on a whole different level here. Let me ask you this last thing on the college side. I have the narrative bet, and I've been telling about you all day.
Yes.
For anybody that missed it, Harold Fannin Jr., the tight end for Bowling Green, 12 receptions will get him the single-season FBS record at a tight end position for what would be 112 reception season. Yardage-wise, I don't know, he needs like less than 20 yards, so that's not even within the conversation. But you've got a 9.5 receptions prop at around minus 130, 105.5 for a straight receiving number. Are you interested? Would you play it? How would you play it?
Like, without doing any background on this, I would have to say to myself, if I read where it's like, kid's playing his last game, quarterback's like, look, we would love him to break the record.
Star running back opted out.
Correct. Like, I would start to lean towards that direction. Now, again, it's not, when we talk about like the NFL final weeks, like, hey, he's going to make an extra $250,000 if he catches 6 passes. When he usually catches 4, yes, he's going to get that. That's the goal. The quarterback knows it. But it's like saying, like, I'm coming in my final collegiate year. If Donnie gets 374 yards receiving, he's going to break. Do you see what I mean where I'm going with this? Like, there are numbers that are outlandish. And for a quarterback in college, you have, 12 completions in a game. It's like, hey, he probably had a pretty good game. But all to one player. You see where I'm going? It's hard to fathom, but it will be fun to watch because it's one of those where you're going to see the opening drive. And if he gets 3 catches, and I'm not talking about 44 yards down the field, like where rocket screens out, short dump balls over the middle, then you know the game plan. Because I don't know really on college football here if you can get in game with like catches, and they usually don't do that per se even in bowl games. And I doubt they would do that. So you would have to make the decision. But if there was any chatter behind the scenes, Kevin, that we want this guy to get the record, I probably would be in on it.
I don't know. I think there has to be.
Yeah.
If he's like, I think the only people that are leaving are I signed with a power school. I'm left with really no option here.
See, what, senior? Last game? No.
He's a junior, but I think he's going to the NFL.
Oh, okay.
He's had that Donnie, if you look it up, like I said, and understandably you've not looked into Bowling Green's tight end.
Yeah.
2 of his 4 best games were against Penn State and Texas A&M.
Yeah.
Like the defense, what I think's funny, and I played the yards, and I'm happy with that decision, is if he goes 5 yards and lays down. He's like, listen, I can't chew up all the real estate right now.
Or, yeah, he gets the 13th catch, no matter where he's at. Coach brings him out and says, you're done for the day. Thanks. High five.
I wonder if that's plausible.
What's the total? Let me get a peek at this.
It's in the 50s. It's not super high. Yeah. I mean, for a college game, right?
Yeah.
That's not, for an NFL game, you're like, wow, we got game of the season when you see a number like that. I think, man, just all the factors in it. I don't mind going against a narrative sometimes.
Yeah.
If he's playing. Like, the thing, like, Donnie, he's had 4 10-catch games. Just normal. You know, like, now you remove the superstar running back, and you're up against a terrible defense.
They're
you can do whatever
by double
you want.
digits, too.
I laid the 10.
Would you have felt better if they were getting 10.5, though, to be honest?
So weirdly, no, because to me, they're just in a situation where the team they are playing against, Donnie, is probably like, I mean, they have to be the worst team to make a bowl game.
Yeah.
Like, they happen to be 7-5. Like, they're playing a team, DRS, that's closer to, like, the winless Kent State than they actually are, you know, an equal team across the field from them. So.
By the way, we're watching the end of this. It's 46-46, which college, I don't know why we had to go to the 2-point conversions, but why don't they just move it back to the 5-yard line then?
Just like might as keep gimmicking it up?
Yes, because sooner or later somebody's going to make a play, somebody's not.
Yeah.
But they have 2 awful defenses where it's like we're just getting 2 yards. Because in the NFL, it's like, hey, man, it's tough to get those final 2 yards to get the 2-point conversion. It's so easy in college, it feels like.
Did anyone complain, like their format being their format?
Yeah.
Did anybody complain about it where, like, who was like, we don't like...
Was it like TV? It's like, this is running way too long. Because you're getting 5 plays instead of 1.
But, like, this makes, I feel like it goes so much longer.
That's all. It's actually boring to watch at that point. Also, if you're a prop guy, like you're getting touchdowns and you're not even getting that.
Yeah,
anymore.
no.
So
That's the killer bit of it all. This is insane. This game's going into the 60s. We'll talk NFL next with DRS.
I'm actually not even on a side today.
Yeah.
And I'll get to that. Why are you on Texas?
I gave them a chance. Maybe not me as the overwhelming authority in college football, but entering that game on this set, to you guys, I said there was one elite defense entering the matchup in Austin back to end out October. It's not the Bulldogs like it used to be. It is Texas.
College football today, only on SportsGrid.
How do you find some of this great talent that you've brought in, you know, who are still early in their career, might not have a ton of tape on them yet?
You know, I've been around this business, man, for almost 20 years. So a lot of these guys will tell you that I popped into a lot of gyms, sparred, or just worked on the side, or, you know, kind of worked out, just watching. I've always loved this sport, man. I think it's the greatest. And we want to continue to put on the next up-and-coming superstars. We know we got them.
Only on SportsGrid.
The NFL and college, they don't operate on the same timelines, right? UNLV's head coach just got, you know, the Purdue job this morning, where I imagine, right, UNC probably needs to know from Bill.
And let's say it's late December, and we see 7, 8 teams open, and none of them want Bill. Then Bill's got to make a decision. Does he want to be a college head coach?
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The 2 guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, let's talk some ball here with DRS on Game Time Decisions, Donnie. Bears, Seahawks. Yeah, the little game you and I played this morning of Does This Game Matter?
Yeah, nobody knows.
Donnie, I went and talked to, I had the same conversation.
Yes.
Like, nobody believes me to the point now where I don't believe myself anymore.
Yep.
But what are you thinking heading into Chicago here, catching 4.5, 5 maybe, depending where you look?
Yeah, I think both teams are going to play hard. I think both teams starters were there regardless of position. Still 2 weeks to go in the season. Young head coach for Seattle. Not going to send the message like, hey, well, this doesn't matter. We just got to wait out. We'll watch tomorrow night and see if that Rams game matters. Then we'll take it on next week. That's not going to happen. Same thing with the Chicago Bears on their side also. The Chicago Bears aren't taking this game off. They got a young offensive coach that really wants to put his stamp on it. You still have Caleb Williams. You want to go out with a little bit of, hey, we played well the final weeks of the season, almost as a springboard to 2025. But for me tonight, this line's getting away a little bit now. 5, even 5.5 showing up at some outlets across the board, which is interesting to me, which means the heavy favorite team is the Seattle Seahawks. I heard you bring it up earlier, too, and you're right about this. The Bears' schedule hasn't done them any favors. Like, even coming into the season, you knew this was a tough division, but did we know it would be this tough with 2 teams with 13 wins, and then the Packers are there? So them scrambling around playing decent football, it's like, well, they're getting banged up every week. It's hard to have a schedule like the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like, hey, we're cruising. We're playing teams we can beat. And then all of a sudden you play 3 heavyweights and you get knocked out in all 3 of those games. For me, I probably wouldn't be looking at taking the points per se, but 42.5 I think is doable in this game because I think the Chicago Bears, as much maligned as they've been on offense, that's a product of playing good teams with good defenses. The Seattle Seahawks, middling defense. I'm not saying they're bad, 14th, 15th, 16th in the league, same as the Chicago Bears. I do think we have the capabilities to score points tonight. I'm more apt to take the over in the game than I would be a side here.
Yeah, just looking at it because you mentioned it, the strength of schedule, the only team with a harder one than Chicago is listed as Vegas.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, 3 potential playoff teams, and one of them is 15-1, and you play them twice. So that's 30-2.
Yeah.
When you think about it with Kansas City on that record, so it kind of gives you an idea of how tough and difficult it's been for the Bears. Prop wise, where do you hang your hat in this game?
Yeah, and it's funny because I heard you talking as well. You're trying to come up with concepts here because this is actually a decent game prop player-wise. Both quarterbacks, I think, will sling it. I saw that 215 number on Caleb Williams. I think that's a legitimate number that he should be able to go over tonight. Because the one thing I always like to say, like narratives, you're not like saying for Chicago, we just want to get a win. It's your goal as the offensive coordinator to get your quarterback in sync. And he's got 3 legitimate wideouts on the outside, and we know that Cole Kmet is a decent tight end. And the running game with DeAndre Swift hasn't been in the past couple weeks. Why? Because they're getting shelled in a lot of these games. You're not cranking up the running game in the second half. So I do think there's a legitimate chance there. But if I'm looking at one wide receiver, like Jackson Smith-Njigba has really taken over as the number 1, which you could DK Metcalf is there, and he's the one.
Yeah.
Lockett used to be a phenomenal second wide receiver. You're seeing his numbers priced at like 20 yards in games now because Jackson Smith-Njigba is now that total go-to guy in the slot position. But I do think Charbonnet has a legitimate chance of scoring anytime touchdown. But here's the problem. You look at books like FanDuel, minus 165. But you're not worried about Kenneth Walker. He's on IR. There's nobody else on that team that's going to run that football in but him. It's not a bad look in his option. But wide receiver-wise, I'd probably go DJ Moore number 1 on the Chicago Bears, Jackson Smith-Njigba number 2.
How familiar are you with the Charbonnet situation from last week of what happened with everything there? Zach Charbonnet being named a captain and then getting a season-low snap percentage, 1 carry.
Yeah.
Like, people were like, oh, he took the job from Walker.
Yeah.
Like, when Walker's healthy, they used him twice as much as they did last week. So why last week was Kenny McIntosh beating him out for carries?
I don't know. Product of environment at that point. Maybe he was sick. They just didn't tell us here. But I'm not looking at, like, again, the backup running back to Charbonnet taking his carries. And I'm not saying I'm taking him over his rushing yards, but I just believe if there's a touchdown coming back from the running position for Seattle, that's the guy to go to. Do I want his yards? No, not necessarily. Yeah. But I do think now, it used to be like, oh, now you have to weigh in on where Kenneth Walker is. So I always thought Kenneth Walker was the more talented back. I don't think most people were arguing that decision that he's more talented than Charbonnet. But I think it's a decent game. And again, you're coming into this where it's not, hey, man, these are 2 really good defenses that can stop you. I don't think that's the case. I think yards are there. But from quarterbacks, I'd actually rather take Caleb Williams over that 215 than I think Geno is close to that 250 number.
If Seattle wins out, that means that and wins the division.
Yeah.
They draw Minnesota. They maybe draw Green Bay, however that breaks. How realistic do you think a win in the playoffs is for this Seahawks team?
Low.
Yeah.
Extremely low. Same way you're looking at, I don't want to say like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers can't win if they win the division or Atlanta, but it's not one of those where you're saying, ooh, this is going to be tough. Same thing with the Rams, because you are going to get such a punch out of either the Green Bay Packers and or the Minnesota Vikings that I don't think either one of them are going to win games anyway.
But would you say, because this is what I think the perception is.
Yeah.
Rams, Seahawks, Bucks, Falcons. Rams to you in the same tier of those other 3, or would you say they're a step above?
I think the Rams are a step above those other teams. I do. Look at their records and how it's going to look. Seattle's a talented team.
Yeah.
But I always like to say, okay, the Rams are in it. What can they do well? Well, they have 2 dominant wideouts and a quarterback that's won the Super Bowl and one of the best play callers in football. That's where I would lean on. Because if they're healthy in the playoffs, that's one of those teams a la Cincinnati Bengals. Like, you really don't want to play the Rams. You know what I mean? If you had, even though you might be favored, and you probably will be, depending on what team's going to play them, but they're still formidable at home with that quarterback coaching combination and the wide receivers.
I'll tell you, if Minnesota goes to L.A., it's going to be a real short number because it was, and that was like a very low version of the Rams. We didn't even think Puka was going to play much in that game. That was, a rolling Minnesota team. What's crazy, though, is, again, like, it might be Detroit. But if that Lions team goes start to finish 1 seed and loses one game and falls to the 5, people are going to lose their minds.
No, that's what, like, the same thing being an Eagles fan watching this play out, which I thought 2 weeks ago they'd be the 1 seed, but then I felt like Minnesota would fall off maybe a little bit, lose a game they weren't supposed to. Same thing with Detroit. They've two gone through. So the Eagles could have actually been 15-2 and the 2 seed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like fighting with 2 other teams to get that top seed, which is how good those top-end teams in the NFC have been.
It's really incredible. And I think for Detroit, what I'm curious of, if they end up in L.A., Seattle, wherever it may be, Tampa, Atlanta, how devastating would it be to lose the division? Because really, I mean, that is one of, you know what, it almost happened, Carolina, Donnie, the year they were flirting with the unbeaten record, Cam Newton's MVP season. I remember they lost, but Atlanta was hot on their heels. The Falcons had a great year.
Yeah.
You were like, could you imagine if this team flips from unbeaten to a wild card? It didn't play out that way.
Yeah.
Just for Detroit, how devastating it would be to have that type of shift.
Look at the Eagles last year.
Well,
riding high, couldn't even win a playoff game when it was all said and done. Could be the same way out.
Let's never talk about that again. Let's talk about some other high-level stuff within the NFL next on SportsGrid.
I'm actually not even on a side today.
Yeah.
And I'll get to that. Why are you on Texas?
I gave them a chance. Maybe not me as the overwhelming authority in college football, but entering that game on this set to you guys, I said there was one elite defense entering the matchup in Austin back to end out October. It's not the Bulldogs like it used to be. It is Texas.
College football today, only on SportsGrid.
How do you find some of this great talent that you've brought in, who are still early in their career, might not have a ton of tape on them yet?
I've been around this business, man, for almost 20 years. So a lot of these guys will tell you that I popped into a lot of gyms, sparred or just worked on the side or, kind of worked out, just watching. I've always loved this sport, man. I think it's the greatest. And we want to continue to put on the next up-and-coming superstars. We know we got them.
Only on SportsGrid.
The NFL and college, they don't operate on the same timelines, right? UNLV's head coach just got, the Purdue job this morning, where I imagine, right, UNC probably needs to know from Bill.
And let's say it's late December, and we see 7, 8 teams open, and none of them want Bill. Then Bill's got to make a decision. Does he want to be a college head coach?
Pro football today, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Live right here, Game Time Decisions. And, I just want to ask you something. Yesterday with the NFL on Christmas.
Yeah.
I think they said 700 million people watched those games.
Yeah.
And in doing so, a lot of people went, wow, Lamar is the MVP. And I'm not really understanding what's happening anymore with the MVP award. record used to be a major driving force.
Yes.
I don't know if Lamar is on more primetime games than Josh Allen.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, Lamar statistically has been better than Josh. I think situationally,
yes,
Josh's is much. It's nowhere near as good as Lamar's.
Mm-hmm.
I am genuinely stunned at how many people keep saying Lamar is the clear-cut MVP with the precedent we have seen set in this league for a little over half a decade.
And also, are we forgetting like what Josh Allen was doing in a couple of those games when he was asserting himself as the actual MVP? Yeah. Like when you look at MVPs, yes, it's so much about statistics. It's so much about record. But sometimes you can just look at the eyeball test and do the simple things. Remove Lamar Jackson from the Ravens. Are they as good? No, they're not. Could they be competitive with a decent quarterback? Yes, they could. Remove Josh Allen from the Buffalo Bills. They might be picking in the top 5 in the draft.
Yeah.
And that's not even – who is their top – oh, well, Donnie, they got Khalil Shakir. Oh, okay. James Cook, love him at running back. You know why James Cook is really good? Because that read option with Josh Allen that goes, boy, we can't leave the quarterback alone. We got to make sure we have a guy on him. Oh, look, James Cook goes down the sideline. I truly believe that. The Ravens would be competitive trying to make the playoffs. The Buffalo Bills would basically be in the NBA's version of the lottery without Josh Allen.
That was the reason I was low on Buffalo coming into the year, is I'm like, oh, well, I don't like what's around him.
Yeah.
Now, I was wrong a little bit about what was around him, but he has also played the best season of his career in Josh Allen. But truly, I do not understand how literally the same guy last year wins MVP under the context of we give it to the quarterback with the best record.
Correct.
And this year, it's the same guy. We go, yeah, but look at all the stats. It's like, well, why didn't you look at any of the statistics last year?
Yeah, goalposts move all the time at this point. But it is funny that Lamar Jackson is turning that heat on late in the season. They're playing really good football, but nobody was remembering the games that they were losing. Like we do this in college football. It's like, man, you lost to Vanderbilt. You can never play again. Do you see who lost? The Ravens lost to this year? Like, we can't go over that and be like, there's no way you can be MVP. Like he's joking about Notre Dame making the college football playoff. They can't make it losing to NIU. Well, I mean, they can, but you're still going to have that argument as, like, look at their bad losses.
I just, like, they keep doing these graphics, and they're actually driving me nuts of this year for Lamar compared to his prior MVP years.
Yeah.
And the only takeaway when you show that graphic is, oh, wow, that was really stupid. We gave it to him last year. The guy who wasn't one of the 3 best quarterbacks in football, we gave the award to because, like, look, I understand why Brock Purdy didn't win it. He was better than Lamar last year.
Yeah.
He's not better than Lamar, but that isn't how the award's handed. So, I don't know. This shift is odd to me. It's a little bit confusing. If you look, Donnie, though, on the books, right, it looks like a 2-man race.
Yes.
But some books are still, it looks to me, if Saquon breaks the record, maybe. Do you think if Saquon does break the single-season rush record, he has a chance to win MVP?
I would still say no, unless he breaks the all-time, or excuse me, you're asking not 2,000 yards, right?
Yeah, I'm
the
saying
all-time record.
If he breaks the record, how realistic are his chances to win MVP?
I don't think he can, because the way he would break it would be against the New York Giants, and would people be like, well, they just kept in the game against a horrendous team just to try to get those numbers. Now, the Philadelphia Eagles didn't lose last week, and there was a chance that they could be the 1 seed, and he did it against the Giants while they won the 1 seed. I think he gets in as those extracurriculars that I like to talk about.
Yeah.
It's easy to say no as we sit here because of how much he needs, but you know as well as I do, the opportunity is there. Like if Jalen Hurts, who's not going to play this weekend as it looks at, and Kenny Pickett's quarterback, that's 30 carries. What can he do with 30 carries at home against the Dallas Cowboys?
I think
touchdowns will be his. No tush pushes.
They should tush push Pickett. I think the only pathway for Saquon is Lamar losing the division. Because to me, if it becomes about cool statistics, then they're going to give it to the guy who's, flirting with one of the greatest
You're right,
statistical
though, but they
seasons.
are holding Saquon because he's done it before. He's got $170 at the half, and away they go.
Yeah. He runs for 220. They're going to make sure he gets that record then in Week 18. We'll see you later tonight. We'll be joined by Lisi. Pre-game show is next.